Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today I'll be teaching you how to make a modern cable blouse vest. Vest blouse? Top? Not sure what to call it, but in any event, I love it. It's rocking some nifty cap sleeves, a scoop neck for a softer look, and the perfect amount of texture to add some pop. Speaking of, if you like to make things pop, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of head-turning modern crochet patterns with new patterns on the way, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 300 grams of yarn, and that's 450 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us which movie or show you think has the best soundtrack. It depends, but for me, overall, I pick Hercules, but if I'm busy, My Hero has some bops too. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is for size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Next, we're all going to grab our 5mm hook, and we're going to get started with our cable stitch detail. So let's all make an even number chain that reaches from mid-collarbone across our chest to mid-collarbone. I need a total of 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 24. Now that we have our chain, we're going to get started on our row 1, which is a half double crochet row. Start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And now we're going to half double crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook. So yarn over and insert into that third chain. We're going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Once more, yarn over into the following chain, pull through 3, and continue putting 1 half double crochet into every chain. Our row 1 is finished. Now let's get started on row 2, which is another half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip your work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Our first 2 rows are finished. Let's get started on our row 3, or our first cable stitch row. So chain 2 and flip your work. Our first and last cable are going to be the same for everyone, no matter what size we're making, and we're always going to frame our cables with front post treble crochets. So to do the first one, each of our cable stitch rows is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into row 1. To do our first front post treble crochet, we're going to yarn over twice. There's 1, there's 2. Inserting our hook underneath the body of the first half double crochet from row 1, not counting that chain 2, we're going to insert our hook underneath the body and bring it through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. The first front post treble crochet is finished. Now to do our first cable for our row 3, we're going to start with a front post double treble crochet. So that is going to be a yarn over of 3. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. We're going to skip the following 2 stitches from our row 1. So we're going to skip 1, skip 2, and then underneath that next, insert with your front post double treble crochet. So into that third, underneath the body of that half double crochet and through the other side, yarn over, pull through. Next, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now for the cable detail, our stitch is going to be worked in sets of 2. So since we just did 1 front post double treble, we're going to be doing another front post double treble into that following stitch. Yarn over 1, 2, 3 times again. Underneath that following stitch into our row 1, bring your hook underneath, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now to do the twist for our cable, we're going to be working into those 2 stitches that we just skipped over, putting 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. Start with a yarn over of 3. Bring your hook down and underneath that first half double crochet, through the other side, pull through, and just like before, continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And then we have 1 more stitch left to work into because like I said, they're worked in sets of 2. So yarn over 3 times, and then into that last skip stitch, pull through, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. The next thing we need to do for this cable is 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So yarn over twice now, and then into that following stitch into our row 1, pull through 2, 2, 2, and then another front post treble crochet because like I said, they are worked in sets of 2. And that is the cable detail. And like I said, the cables are going to be framed within front post treble crochets. So just 1 more front post treble crochet into that following stitch into row 1. Now our cable stitch detail is all finished, and now we can get started on our Alpine detail. So everyone's Alpine stitch detail is going to start with a half double crochet into the 9th stitch from our previous row. So we are skipping the first 8 stitches because we just took up 8 stitches with our cable stitch detail. So counting the tops of our row 2, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then into that 9th, insert with a half double crochet. Yarn over, insert into that 9th stitch from our previous row, pull through all 3. Now to do our front post double crochet, it's still going to be worked into our row 1. So yarn over, and taking a look at our row 1, we're going to skip that following stitch because this half double crochet counts as this stitch, and then underneath that following, we're going to insert our hook, bring it through the other side, pull through. Now to do our front post double crochets, we need to get it the same height as the half double crochets. So we're going to pull it nice and tall. After that, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is one of our Alpine stitch sets. Let's do this again. Yarn over. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as this stitch. And then in through the following, insert with a half double crochet. And then we're going to do our front post double crochet again. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our row 1 because this half double crochet counts as this stitch, and insert your hook underneath the body of that following half double, pull through, yank up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. And we're going to continue to do our half double crochet and front post double crochet until we have 8 stitches left. And since we all had an even number of stitches, our last stitch for our Alpine stitch detail is going to be a front post double crochet. Our Alpine stitch detail is finished, and we should all have 8 stitches left. Technically 9, because this front post double crochet is going to count as that stitch right here. Now we're going to close this off with our cable stitch detail. Like I said, our cable stitch detail is going to be framed in front post treble crochets. So our following stitch is going to be front post treble. Start by yarning over twice, and then inserting our hook underneath that following half double crochet from row 1, and we're going to pull through. Pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now the second cable stitch detail is going to mirror this first one. So to get started on the second one, we're going to be doing 2 front post treble crochets into each of the following 2 stitches. So yarn over twice, into that next half double crochet from row 1. There goes 1 front post treble. And then into that following stitch, another front post treble. And now we're going to be doing a set of 2 front post double treble crochets. So yarn over 3 times, and we're going to skip 1, skip 2. Into that following stitch, or into the third to last stitch from row 1, insert with our first front post double treble crochet. And then also into that second to last stitch, or the following stitch, with another front post double treble crochet. Now to work on this twist, we're going to have to do a set of 2 front post double treble crochets into those 2 skip stitches, but now working through that window that we just made for ourselves. So let's all start by yarning over 3 times. Now we're going to hang on to our working yarn because it can very easily fall off, and then we're going to pull our work down towards us, trying to find those 2 skip stitches in through that window. So pull downwards and find those 2 skip stitches. Here's my first. Here's my second. I'm going to insert my hook into that first skip stitch with 1 front post double treble crochet. And this is what our work should look like. As you can see, it's starting to twist, and we're going to be doing 1 more into that following skip stitch. So yarn over 3 times, hang on to your working yarn, and pull our work down, finding that last skip stitch. This is mine right here. I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. Now, the cable stitch detail is pretty much finished, and we need to close this row off with a front post treble crochet, now combined with a half double crochet to secure it all down. So yarn over twice. Into the last stitch from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down. We're going to insert and pull through. Now we should have a total of 4 loops on our hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. So all together, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. When we have those 2 loops left, yarn over, and then we're going to insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So into that stitch, insert, pull through for a total of 4 loops left on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops. Now our row 3 is all finished. Each of our even number rows is going to be a half double crochet row. So just chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. We are back, and we should all together have 1, 2, 3, and 4 rows. Now let's get started on our 5th or our 2nd cable stitch row. Chain 2 and flip the work. Getting started on a row 5, we're going to start with our cable. And a really fun fact, our right cable for row 5 is going to be the same as our left cable for row 3. Maybe a little confusing, but let's do that together. We're always going to start our cable stitch detail with a front post treble crochet. So remember in the last clip I said each of our odd number rows is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on row 5, we're going to be inserting our hook in through row 3. And getting started with our front post treble, we're going to yarn over twice. Find that front post treble from row 3, and then do a front post treble into there. So pull through and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. Now for the cable stitch portion, we're going to be putting 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches into our row 3. So start with a yarn over of 2, inserting your hook into that following stitch, pull through, and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left again, and then 1 more front post treble crochet into that following stitch. So yarn over twice, into that following stitch, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now to do a set of 2 front post double treble crochets, yarn over 3 times, skip the following 2 stitches from our row 3, then into that following stitch and the stitch right after that, 1 front post double treble crochet. So insert, and then continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left, and then another front post double treble into that following stitch. And now from here for the twist. A set of 2 front post double treble crochets working into those 2 skip stitches, working into that window. So start with a yarn over of 3, hang on to our working yarn, pull our work down. Find our skip stitches. Here's my first, and here's my second. I'm going to start by inserting my hook into that first. Pull through and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. That is my twist. Let's do that once more into that last skip stitch. This is my skip stitch right here. I'm going to insert, pull through 2, 2, 2, and 2. And that is our cable. We're going to close off our cable stitch detail with a front post treble. So yarn over twice, and then into that following stitch, pull through 2, 2, and 2. That is our row 5's right cable finished. Now we're at our Alpine stitch detail, and we're going to do a front post double crochet into that following half double crochet. So yarn over once, and then find the half double crochet from our row 3. Insert a hook underneath, yarn over, pull through, pull up nice and tall still because we need the same height, pull through 2, and then a half double crochet into that following stitch. Now we're going to be skipping 9 stitches from our previous row, and then half double crocheting into the 10th, and this is the same for all sizes because we just did a total of 9 stitches. So counting from our previous row, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. Into that 10th stitch, a half double crochet. And that is our first Alpine stitch set for our row 5. And we're going to continue that until we have 8 stitches left, or until we have the same amount of stitches as our previous Alpine stitch detail. Now our Alpine stitch detail are always going to be staggered from our previous row to get the texture that we'd like. So just doing this next set together, the first stitch in this set is a front post double, so we're going to yarn over. Our front post double is always going to be worked into our previous odd number rows half double crochet, because if we do front post double into front post double, we'll actually just be creating a ribbing. So making sure that we're inserting into the half double, through the other side, pull through 2, pull through 2, and continue this until we have a total of 8 stitches left, or the same amount of sets as our previous Alpine stitch detail. And the last stitch that we should have for this Alpine stitch detail should be a half double crochet. Now the Alpine stitch detail for my row 5 is finished, and we're going to close off our row 5 with our left cable stitch detail. Our row 5's left detail is going to be the exact same as our row 3's cable detail. We're always going to start with a front post treble crochet to frame it off. So yarn over twice, find that following stitch, pull through, and continue to pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. And to do our cable, we're going to start with a set of 2 front post double treble crochets, so yarn over 3 times, skip the following 2 stitches, and then into the next, 1 front post double treble crochet, and then into that following, another front post double treble crochet. And now 1 front post double treble crochet into the 2 stitches that we skipped. So here's my first, and here is my second. Insert into there and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left. And now to close off this cable, a set of 2 front post double treble crochets into the following 2 stitches. There's my first, and here is my second. And then 1 front post treble crochet combined with a half double crochet to close off our row 5 or every cable stitch row that we have. So just like the previous row, yarn over twice, and then insert your hook into the last front post treble from our previous row, pull through. We're going to yarn over it and pull through 2 until we have 2 loops left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row and pull through. When we have those 4 loops on our hook, just yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. And now our row 5 is finished. Like I said in one of our previous clips, each of our even number rows is going to be a half double crochet row. So chain 2, flip your work, and put 1 half double crochet into every stitch. Our half double crochet row is finished, and altogether we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rows finished. From here, it's going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6 until we get the length of the piece that we need. If you need timestamps for any of the rows or any of the sections, all of those will be linked down below, or if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. But we're going to continue this until we get the length, making sure that we're placing this first row where we want the bottom of this top to be, so you can make this cropped or long, until this reaches all the way up to about mid-chest, or if you'd like to cover more, continue on with more rows until you get your desired height, or if you want to show a little bit more, do fewer rows. I'm just going to get started on this following row, just to remind you guys what it's going to look like when we get started with our row 3. So after our half double crochet, we're going to chain 2 to get started on our cable stitch row and flip our work. Each of our cable stitch rows is going to get started with a front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice. Right now we're working on our row 7, so we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 5. So find the first front post treble crochet from our row 5 and insert our hook in through there. Then to get started on our row 3, we're going to start with a set of front post double treble crochets, so yarn over 3 times, and we're going to skip 1, skip 2, into that following stitch and into the stitch right after, because remember they're worked in sets of 2, 1 front post double treble crochet into each. And from here, continue to repeat the entirety of our row 3. A half double crochet row back, and then repeat our row 5. And from here, just continue those rows. I'll meet you back right after a cable stitch row or an odd number row. The length of my cable stitch detail is finished. I have a total of 43 rows, and my height is about 14 inches or 36 centimeters. I ended right after a cable stitch row, and now we're going to start working on our side panels. So from here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then single crochet down the edge of our cable stitch detail. We're going to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. So to do the first few, we're going to find our first side row, which is this stitch right over here. Insert your hook into that top loop with just 1 single crochet. Now finding our following side row, which is this one right here, and if you flip your work over, it should be the solid half double crochet row. Find that top loop and then insert your hook in through there with 1, and then in through that same top loop with 2 single crochets. And that's it. Let's do this again. Find our following side row, which should be this gap right here. Insert with 1. And then our following side row, which is this one right here, with 2 single crochets. And continue this until we don't have any more side rows left to work into. Our single crochet row is finished. Now we're going to do some back loop slip stitches for some really fine ribbing. At the end of our single crochet row, we're going to chain 1 and flip our work. Let's all start by finding the last stitch from our previous row and insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us, and then gently yarn over and pull through everything. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch's back loop, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through everything, and then once more into that following stitch's back loop, yarn over, pull through everything, and continue putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and be sure to not tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row can be a little too tight to work into. Our back loop slip stitch row is finished, and now for the remainder of our side panel, we're going to be doing back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows. So since our slip stitch row is done, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work, preparing for a back loop half double crochet row. From here, we're going to yarn over, find the last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, pull through 3. Again, yarn over, into that following stitch's back loop, pull through 3. Continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Like I said, we're going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases until the side panel can stretch over to the corner of our underarm. And I'll meet you back right after a back loop slip stitch row. And a really quick tip, we do want to make sure that when we're putting this piece up to ourselves, we are stretching it as if we're wearing it. I am back and my side panel is finished. Including my first single crochet row, I just have a total of 4 rows, and this width is just about 1 inch or 2 centimeters. And now my total width is 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. Now from here, since our last row should reach the corner of our underarm, we're going to get started on our underarm portion. So we're going to put this up to ourselves, making sure that we're placing this top row, so opposite from our working yarn, is where we want our neckline to be. And then we're going to insert our stitch marker right where the corner of our underarm is. Now the top of your neckline might be pretty close to the corner of your underarm. As you can see, mine is here, but that's completely fine. I just inserted my stitch marker into the 5th stitch from the top, and that's 1 inch or 2 centimeters from the top. Now we're going to do the following row in a row sequence, which is 1 back loop half double crochet row. But now we're going to leave 2 loops right before our stitch marker stitch so that we can do a decrease together. We've made our way up with our back loop half double crochets, leaving 2 stitches right before our stitch marker, and now we're going to do a decrease together. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook in through that second to last back loop, pull through, and also insert your hook into that last back loop, and pull through. Yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and then a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. So chain 1, flip your work, and make your way down. The row right after that is going to be a back loop half double crochet row, so right after our slip stitch row, chain 2, flip your work, and then put 1 back loop half double into every stitch, leaving the last 2 so that we can decrease together once more. Our back loop slip stitch row is finished, and we are nearly finished with our back loop half double crochet row. We have left the last 2 stitches so that we can decrease together once more. So again, yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, into that last back loop, pull through all 4. And then that's it. Continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So that is a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and then a back loop half double crochet row that ends on a decrease of 2 until this portion can stretch over to mid underarm. I'll meet you back right after we do a chain up of 1 and cut right after a half double crochet row. I am back and one side panel is completely finished. I have a total of 9 rows, and this width is about 2 inches or 5 centimeters unstretched, or my total width is 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters. Now we're going to repeat what we did here on the other side, but we are going to need to insert our hook into some different places because the ribbing isn't reversible. So from here, we're going to take our same 5mm hook and then insert our hook in through the top corner stitch of our cable stitch detail, and the top is the same side that our stitch marker is into. So go ahead and insert your hook in through there, and then we're going to repeat this first side panel portion. So a single crochet row, alternating between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, a back loop slip stitch, and then back loop half double crochet row until we have the same amount of side panel rows as this first portion over here. When we have those rows finished, we will end along the top. So do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back to get started on this side's underarm portion. So my second side panel is all finished. Like I said, we would end along the top, so I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. And now we're going to do our underarm portion. I'm just going to do the first row with you guys because it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to start by inserting our stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we inserted our stitch marker into for this side over here. So if you have my numbers, I inserted my stitch marker into the 5th stitch from the top. So I did the same thing on this side. And now we're going to insert our hook into that stitch that we have that's right next to our stitch marker stitch, working our way down and making sure that we're inserting into that back loop because we want to keep up with the ribbing. We are now going to insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and we're going to start with a chain 2, but that chain 2 isn't going to count as a stitch. We just need the height. And then from here, we're going to start with a decrease of 2. So yarn over, and then start by inserting our hook into that same stitch that our chain 2 is in, inserting into that back loop, pull through, and then into that following stitch's back loop, pull through all 4, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. And then we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 rows. So a back loop half double crochet row that now starts with a decrease of 2, and then a back loop slip stitch row until we have the same amount of underarm rows as we had on the other side. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut. I am back and my second underarm portion is finished, meaning our entire front panel is all done. My total width is 11.5 inches or 29 centimeters unstretched, and now we can get started with our back panel. So getting started on our back panel, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last underarm row. For me, I have a total of 56 stitches, so I'm now going to make a chain of 56. And I actually already have my underarm portion finished up, so I'm just going to be doing a little sample size with you. Now that we have our chain, we're going to half double crochet all the way down. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. And then put 1 half double crochet into every chain, starting with the 3rd chain from our hook, leaving the last chain so we can do an increase together. So now that we put 1 half double crochet into every chain, into that last one, we're going to do an increase of 2 half double crochets, which is 2 half double crochets into that same last chain. So there's my first, there's my second. After that increase, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So no increases and no decreases into this row. We're going to alternate between a back loop half double and back loop slip stitch row for the entirety of the back panel. So once when the slip stitch row is finished, chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one again. Our back loop slip stitch row is finished, and our back loop half double crochet row is nearly finished. Just into that last stitch, insert your hook into that back loop with 1, and then with a second half double crochet. And from here, it's going to be a repeat of our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and our back loop half double crochet row that always ends on an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets until we have a portion that can stretch, because remember, this does have a decent amount of stretch to it, from mid underarm over to the base of our neck. Now, the point of this underarm portion does not need to reach the base of our neck, it just needs to be aligned with the edge of the base of our neck. And the back panel's back portion is going to be taller and more narrow than the front panel's chest detail. And we're just doing it that way so that we can get the shape that we want for our sleeves. So go ahead and get this done, and then I will meet you back right after a half double crochet row. The underarm portion that I have for my back panel is finished. I have a total of 13 rows, and my width is 3 inches or 8 centimeters unstretched. From here, we're going to go in with the back panel portion. So we're all going to start by making a chain that is in multiples of 3 until this can reach the top of our shoulder. Now I needed about 4 inches or 10 centimeters, so I made a chain of 21. And now that we have our chain, we're going to do the following row in a row sequence, which is a slip stitch row. So block off that last chain, do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, insert with a slip stitch, and then that's it. We're going to put 1 slip stitch into every chain, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and then right after that, a back loop half double crochet row with no increases and no decreases. We're going to alternate between a back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet row, again with no increases and no decreases, until this portion that we have can stretch across and is the width of the base of our neck. Then I will meet you back on the other side of the base of our neck, and I will meet you back after a slip stitch row. I am back, and the back portion of my back panel is all finished. I have a total of 34 rows now, and my width is 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters unstretched. Now we're going to finish off our back panel with our second underarm. So first things first, we're all going to want to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of chains that we made that led all the way up to our shoulder. I made a total chain of 21, so counting from the top, I inserted my stitch marker into the 21st stitch. Now we're going to do our following row, which is going to be a back loop half double crochet row, so chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving 2 right before our stitch marker. So I put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, and into the 2 stitches that I left right before my stitch marker, we're going to do a decrease of 2. So yarn over, insert your hook into that second to last back loop, pull through, also into that last back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4. And then from here, chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. We're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows now. So a back loop half double crochet row that ends on a decrease of 2, and then a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the first underarm portion for our back panel. When we have that finished, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. Now that our front and our back panel are finished, the next we're going to do is seam everything. So let's start by placing our front panel on top of our back panel. We're going to want to make sure that our work is slipped right side out, meaning the ribbing that we have for the front panel is faced up, and the ribbing that we have for the back panel is face down. Next, we're going to insert our hook in through the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and now we're going to do our outside loop slip stitch seam. We're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel and insert only into that front loop. Find the next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop, and pull through all 3 loops. Let's do this again. Into the next stitch into the front panel, insert into that loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop, and pull through everything. And continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat on the other side. Now that everything is all seamed together, we're going to need to make a chain that connects the front and the back panel, but we need to have the same amount of stitches on both sides. So let me show you guys how we're going to figure that out. Let's all take a look at our back panel first. So when it comes to the back panel, it's pretty much all finished. This goes from underarm all the way up to the top of our shoulder, which is perfect. we're going to count out how many stitches we're going to have from our underarm all the way up to our top corner. And then we're going to subtract that to the amount of stitches that we have in the front panel. And then that sum is going to be the amount of chains that we make. So what we're going to do is count 2 stitches for every side half double, and then 1 stitch for every side slip stitch, and then 1 stitch for every stitch. So I'm just going to count all of mine out with you guys. So like I said, 2 single for every side half double. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then to do some quick math, I also made a chain of 21 that led all the way up to the top of my shoulder. So 20 plus 21 equals 41. Now I'm going to keep that number in mind for my back panel, and now we're going to count our front panel. So our front panel is significantly shorter than the back panel. That's why we need to add the chains that lead all the way up to the shoulder. So I'm going to count my front panel out with you as well. So same rules apply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I skipped a total of 5 stitches here. So 8 plus 5 is 13. Now I'm going to subtract those 2 numbers, so 41 and 13, and that sum is going to be the amount of chains that we make. So that sum is 28, and then we're going to need to add 1 more, so I'm going to be making a total of 29 chains, and that extra chain is just going to be the middle stitch. So now that we have our number, let's insert our hook into that top corner stitch of the front panel. Like I said, I need to make a total chain of 29. So I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, and then I'm going to start by making my chain. Now that I have my chain, I am going to insert a stitch marker into that last chain that we made, because that is our middle stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch it into the top corner stitch that we have for the back panel. So all I'm going to do is insert my hook, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now that we have our chain, we're going to single crochet along the entirety of our armhole. So let's all start off by making sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our hook into the last stitch into our side seam that we have. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and then do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now working into our armhole, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch, 1 single crochet into every chain, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch. So just to do the first few, I'm going to find my first side row, which should be the side half double, find that top loop and insert my hook in through there. And if you guys are like me, you have a few tail ends, I'm just going to place that over my hook and then single crochet everything together. There's my first single crochet. We have to do 1 more into that same side half double. So find that same top loop and then insert for the second single crochet. Next is our side slip stitch row. Find that top loop, insert with 1 single crochet, and we're going to continue on with the sequence until we reach our chain. When we reach our chain, 1 single crochet into every chain. Once we reach our stitch marker stitch, we're going to make sure that we're placing that stitch marker into that single crochet that's worked into that chain, because we need to maintain where our middle stitch is. And then single crochet all the way back down and then slip stitch into that chain space. Our single crochet row is now finished. As you guys can see, I made sure to insert my stitch marker into that middle stitch, and now we're going to go in with our cap sleeve. So since this is a cap sleeve, it's going to be pretty short. I'm going to start by making a chain the length that I'd like for the bottom of my cap sleeve to be, so pretty tiny. I only want a 1/2 inch or a centimeter. So I'm going to start by making a chain 2. Now that I have my chain 2, I'm going to block off that last chain and then do another chain 2, but that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's just our turning chain. And now we're going to half double crochet into that 3rd chain from our hook or into that chain that we blocked off. And if you guys have more chains than just my chain 2, put 1 half double crochet into every chain until you have 1 left. And then when we have 1 left, we're going to do an increase of 2 into that last chain. So it's just 2 half double crochets into that same last chain. And now that we have that, we're going to need to connect it into the base. Connecting it into the base, we're going to want to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to be working clockwise or to the left because the ribbing that we have is same as the back panel and the front panel, and it's not reversible. So once we're working in the correct direction, we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches, and then into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch to connect. Then we're going to do our following slip stitch row, so slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, and flip our work. And now we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And now that we are at the end of our back loop slip stitch row, chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we have 1 stitch left. And when we have that 1 stitch left, do an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets. And now that our increase is finished, we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we just did. So count up 1, 2 stitches into the base. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch to close off this odd number row, and then to work our way up to our even number row or our back loop slip stitch row, just slip stitch up 1 stitch, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now from here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows. So a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases, and then a back loop half double crochet row that ends on an increase of 2. We're going to continue this until we reach our stitch marker stitch, and the last row that should be worked should be a back loop half double crochet row into the stitch right before our stitch marker stitch. I have made my way all the way up to my stitch marker stitch, and into that stitch marker stitch we're going to do our middle row, which is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, so per usual. So into that stitch, I'm going to take my stitch marker out because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to slip stitch into there per usual, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 2, flip our work, and put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving 2 right before our base. Alright, so my middle row is done, and then my back loop half double crochet row is nearly finished. We left 2 stitches, so we're going to do a decrease together. So yarn over, into that second to last back loop, pull through, into that last back loop, and pull through. Yarn over, pull through all 4. And now we're going to slip stitch it into the base the same way that we have been doing this entire time. So count up the next 2 available stitches, slip stitch into that second stitch, and that's it. We're going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch and back loop half double crochet row. So remember, our back loop slip stitch row does not have any increases or decreases, and then our back loop half double crochet row is now going to end on a decrease of 2, and we're going to continue that until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So we have made our way all the way around with our cap sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it all together. So this is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, same as the sides. So let's all make sure that our work is slipped right side out, right side up, and then we're going to insert our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. And now we're ready to do our seam. So find that first stitch into the front panel, insert, find that first stitch into the back panel, insert, pull through all 3 just like how we did for the sides, and we're going to continue to do this until we don't have any more stitches left. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then repeat this on the other side. Both of our sleeves are finished, and now we're going to finish this piece off with our collar. So making sure that our work is still flipped right side out and right side up, we're going to do a single crochet row along our neckline first. So insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the back. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side half double and 1 single crochet into every side slip stitch row. So this is my first side row right here, this side half double, so I'm going to find that top loop, insert my hook in through there with 2 single crochets. There's my first, There's my second. And then finding that top stitch within my slip stitch row, insert with 1 single crochet. And we're going to continue this, making our way all the way around. Once we reach the front of our neckline, we will have some regular stitches to work into, so just put 1 single crochet into each of those as well. When we've made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space, and then we can get started on the length of our collar. But a really quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So just to double check, try it on once when the single crochet row is finished, just to make sure that it can stretch over our head. If it's a little too tight, redo some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's a little too loose, redo some stitches with a tighter grip. Our single crochet row for the neckline is finished. Now we're going to get started with the length. We're going to get started by making a chain the length that we'd like for our collar to be. I'd like for mine to be about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 5. I'm now going to block off that last chain, to a chain 1, and then into that chain that we blocked off. For the second chain from our hook, we are going to insert with a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through everything, and continue to put 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're going to slip stitch it into that next stitch into the base. So into there, yarn over, pull through everything to connect our row 1. Now we're going to get started on our row 2, which is now going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So into that following stitch, into the base, slip stitch, flip our work, and now put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the following row could be too tight to work into. And at the end of the row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. Now that we're back at the base, we are going to slip stitch it into the base. And now our row 3 is finished up. Just to get started on our following row, slip stitch into that next stitch, flip our work, and we're going to put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. And from here, we're just going to continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, connecting it into the base the same way that we just did. I'll meet you back when we don't have any more stitches left to work into. We've made our way all the way around with our collar. Now we're going to seam it together. This is going to be an outside loop slip stitch seam, so same as the sides and for the sleeve. So let's just do the first one. First things first, make sure that our work is flipped right side out. Then we're going to insert our hook into that first available stitch's front loop into the front panel. Then into that next available stitch's back loop into the back panel. Pull through all 3 and continue this until we don't have any more stitches left. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut. Our seam is all finished and we are all done. Last thing we have to do is weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope you enjoy the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!